Hello, and welcome to the Asteroid Goddess podcast with me, Amanda Barnett, and Jen Hampton. How's everybody doing? This is Goddess number 2. I'm going to pop open my mocktail. I just want everyone to know it is a mocktail. I'm not
I had that.
margaritaing.
I had that the
Not that
other
there would be
day.
anything
So
wrong with
good.
that, but like we're at noon. It's noon o'clock, but it's uh these like I'm this is not product placement. I look like I'm doing a like commercial at the top. It's not a commercial.
This is a
But I love
promo.
these. I don't love this one as much as I love the there's like a rose one
There
that's
is a rose
so
one.
good. Uh
I
but
had the margarita yesterday and I was like, "Oh, I like it," but it didn't hit the mark quite for me for the margarita taste. But I do like the rose
what's
one.
weird is this one just hit the mark more than the one I had before. I like that it's got some salt
Oh,
in it, I think, because it's got a little like
it does.
salt kick. I don't know. I went to get a tea or a kombucha and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have a margarita while we record Vesta.
And they're
So
like calming.
they are. That's the thing.
Adaptogens in it. So it's like it kind of chills you out. My friend turned me on to those. I love them.
Yeah, which is always good for me with my Mercury and Sag to have like a bring it down, bring the nervous system down while I'm doing calls is super supportive. Okay, so today we're doing Vesta, which I'm super excited about. I'm having like a moment with Vesta. I'm headed into my Chiron return, and Vesta is directly conjunct my Chiron and my personality, Earth, and human design. And when we scheduled this, auspiciously for a weird Vesta festival that neither one of us knew was happening,
Nope.
Vesta was actually sitting on my moon. Transiting Vesta was sitting on my natal moon. So we're definitely like in relationship. And Jen is going to kick us off with the mythological piece and what she's channeled from Vesta, and then I'll get into the astrological piece. I'm going to talk about both of our charts as examples, but I'm going to go deeper into mine because I have a much stronger Vesta in my chart. Now, we all have Vesta in our charts, and we all have a relationship to Vesta, like we have a relationship to all the planets, but some of us have like a bit of a more potent one. So, yeah. Do you want to get started?
Yeah, I would love to. So I want to start with one. I had no idea who Vesta was, and her counterpart in Greek mythology is Hestia, and I didn't know
Which is
who.
also its own separate asteroid of note.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, I love that. I kind of want to look into that then too, but that'll be maybe we can do that way down the road. Um, so I did not know who Vesta was, and really when you're like, starting to just kind of get to know who Vesta is, there is not a lot of information on Vesta. Um, which I also kind of loved because it gave me a little bit of room to like, feel into her energy. But anyway, she is a Roman goddess. Vesta is a Roman goddess, and she is known for representation of the hearth, home, domestic life. A little bit later, she's also known for harvesting. So, what do I want to say? Cycles, but she's also known or was known, and maybe that got like a little bit taken away as like a mother goddess. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I feel like that actually isn't as prominent anymore. So she's famous for her eternal sacred fire, which later in Rome was actually used to represent the prominence and the permanence and vitality of the Roman state. So they really like they used her, and that gets into later the Vestal priestesses, which actually the Vestal priestesses were long, long before that, but Rome kind of took over Vesta, and the meaning of Vesta and the sacred fire really represented the continuity of community and Rome being a lit, it's going
It
strong.
also connected places, right? Like people would bring a part of their fire with them, and it was like how they like brought a piece of their homeland to their new land.
Yes. Yeah, like representation. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Her origin, so how she came to be, she was the firstborn daughter or just child of the Titans, Saturn and Ops. And I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's OPS, Ops. So in Greek mythology, that would be Kronos and, or is that what it is? Kronos, and
Kronos. Mhm.
Rhea. So there, when Saturn and Ops had their children, there was a prophecy of Saturn being overthrown by one of his children. And he was like petrified, terrified that this was going to happen. So when Ops was actually giving birth, he was swallowing the children because he's like, well, if I eat them, then nobody's going to be able to overthrow me. And the children are Jupiter, which is Zeus in Greek mythology, Neptune, which is Poseidon in Greek mythology, Pluto, which is Hades in Greek mythology, which we worked with Ceres, Juno, which is Hera, and Ceres, which is Demeter, and Vesta. So it was really interesting because when Ops was like, oh shit, he's eating all our kids, she actually took Jupiter and hid him away on the island Crete. And she wrapped up a rock. And Saturn, was just like, I guess in a frenzy of eating all of his kids, that he was like, give me that one, and ate the rock instead of it being Jupiter. So as Jupiter grew up, he was like, I gotta get rid of this guy. Like, this guy is not cool. And he ate all my siblings. So he actually ended up poisoning his dad, Saturn, which triggered Saturn to like basically throw up his kids, like regurgitate them. And Vesta was the last one to be thrown up. So she is known to be the oldest and the youngest of the Olympian gods. And I just thought that was really interesting. So Vesta does not have like a grand adventure story like we would see in like the Iliad or the Odyssey or even the Hesiod. Like she just did not have a story like that, but she also did not like drama. So she is known for purity and tranquility. She really likes to just kind of be. So her story, as she got older, she was like aggressively pursued by Neptune and Apollo, and they wanted to marry her. And the way that the story goes is like when I hear like aggressively, they really didn't give her a lot of room to be like, hey, I said no, like no means no. It wasn't recognized, and they just kind of like kept going after her, kept going after her. So she grew really tired of this because she also was like, I don't want to waste my time with like little love affairs. Like, I feel like I have a higher purpose and I have a bigger focus. And so she actually went to her brother and she asked Jupiter, could you please kind of make me an eternal virgin? Because I want to remain independent. I don't want to be connected to this drama. She preferred actually maintaining the quiet home fires. And I think this is really interesting because I think this is where her story actually gets twisted a little bit. So it's actually documented that she prefers to stay out of the drama, which I understand, but she likes to just focus on the quiet home fires than getting involved with divine romances. And while I think that's true, I think there's a little bit of manipulation in there. And I think there's some gatekeeping that we're going to start as I get into her story. Not some, there's a massive amount of gatekeeping from what I've actually picked up on Vesta and her real meaning. There's also the story of the donkey. So Vesta was in her, do you know this story?
I do know that the donkey is associated with her, and I was like,
Vesta's
interesting.
associated, yes, the
It's
donkey is
random.
associated with Vesta. And I kind of was like pissed off about that because it was like, we know the donkey is an ass too, but whatever.
I
Um,
love donkeys.
you
I
know, a
really want
donkey.
donkeys bad.
I want,
Donkeys are like fierce protectors, which is an
well,
interesting
this
association.
would make sense. This
Like
would make
people have
sense.
donkeys to protect their livestock from wolves. because donkeys will throw down. Yeah.
I did not know that.
And I've also heard that there always needs to be two because they'll go insane if they don't have like a friend, which is really sweet. Side note on donkeys, guys. Enjoy.
I actually, you know what? Remember this story because I feel like that metaphorically will actually link up to what I'm going to talk about later. So the story of the donkey is that Vesta was in her home and the god Priapus, and he must, I don't know if he was like a demigod or not. I've actually never heard of him, but he snuck into her bed to basically assault her because, everybody wanted Vesta. And she's just like,
Mm.
no means no, fuckers. Like, I know I'm good. I know I'm gorgeous. But like, I know I'm powerful, but I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
The donkey started, is it called mewing?
Mm-hmm.
Hee-haw, hee-haw. And it like woke her up and she was able to basically save herself from this happening. And so the donkey is actually very revered. So it is used, which we'll get into later, for the what's it called? The Vestelia festival with the donkey. So, and actually during this time, the festival goes from June 7th to the 15th. Today is the 15th that we're recording. I texted Amanda this morning. I was like, you won't believe it. Which by now we should totally believe it. But the donkeys are given that time of rest. So they do not work during that time. So I thought
Mm.
it was really cool.
Nice.
So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I'm going to get into here in a minute. But the sacred fire, Vesta is known for sacred fire, keeping the home fire, right? The fire of the hearth. And being a virgin. So she wanted to be an eternal virgin, which archetypally speaking, virgin did not mean you were not enacting in sex. It
Right.
actually meant that you were sovereign, but in terms of like self-ownership and wholeness, but not ruling over others. Like you were completely, even if you were with a partner, you were a sovereign being. There was no controlling the other. So it really felt like a balanced partnership if there was to be a partnership, right? And clearly you could see in her stories that those were not balanced partnerships, right? They were using their force or what they wanted over her. So I think that's really what I want to keep prominent throughout this story is the virgin was not considered to be celibate. It
Right.
was that she was sovereign and she had her own self-ownership. So she was complete unto herself. She was beholden to no one, which we saw, and she was answerable only to her own inner authority. So whatever she felt or what she needed or what she wanted was what she responded to. And I just
Mm-hmm.
think that that's really, really important.
Yes.
Um, okay, sorry, I'm getting my pages mixed up here. So, what I also found really interesting was Vesta is considered the embodiment of the phallic mother. And this is where I think it gets really, really interesting. So, Vesta was actually hardly depicted. So, like, if you look on some old vases or like on the temples, like, I did an article on Artemis, and Medusa was actually on Artemis's temple. So
Mm.
we have kind of these depictions of most of these gods, but with Vesta, we really don't. There's not a massive image of her that is popular or known. But when she is symbolized, which I thought was really interesting, she's actually on coins. So I thought
Mm.
that was really fantastic. So when you would go to the market and you're like here, uh, there was a Vesta coin. And sometimes on those coins, she was seen either with a flame, with a fire stick, sometimes a lantern, a ritual phallus, or a staff or a wand. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. When I was figuring this out, like when I was really thinking about this, like the phallic mother, what does that mean? And The staff, what does that mean? There's a couple of things, but what really got me was the staff is is used as like a form of weaving. So to me, the fire, that she is to represent is not necessarily the fire that we would see in our hearth, but actually the fire that we have within us, our creative fire. And the
Hmm.
staff or the wand is actually used to direct it. And what's really interesting when I do Kali, when I tap into Kali and Hemera even or Artemis, they talk about this creative energy that we carry within us and how it needs direction. So we look at the feminine energy as sometimes being the unconscious, right? It is not, it is formless. And the masculine energy, like especially with Kali and Shiva, right? She's the Shakti, which means if she wasn't paying attention, she could destroy everything. But Shiva, the masculine energy, is what, if she was able to direct it, then it had somewhere to go. So the staff is actually a representation of giving that fire direction a place to go. Now, that is talked about in many other cultures. But what was really interesting, before I get to a story that kind of proves this, I want to share a story that my friend was talking about. And I was talking about Vesta, and she's like, "Oh, I know about the Vestal priestesses," but she's like, this is really interesting about the staff that she carries, because the story of the standing stone is, or the standing stones, is these rocks representing piercing down into the earth like a phallus. So we're drawing from the cosmic mother and the earth mother, and we're weaving that energy. So
Hmm.
it's like
Mhm.
metaphorical, you know what I mean? But this is where it got really interesting. So after I felt that intuitively, I reached out to my friend who knows quite a bit more than I do, and she kind of confirmed what I was feeling. And then I got to Dionysius of Halicarnassus is said to have said, it's actually quoted, "And they regard fire as consecrated to Vesta, because the goddess, being the earth and occupying the central position of the universe, kindles the celestial fires from within herself."
Hmm.
So I just found that really, really fascinating, because again, it's like taking this energy and directing it, and this creative fire, this the divine feminine, essentially, right? This powerful, powerful energy. So I thought that was really fascinating. So then we get to the Vestal Virgins, and I thought this was really interesting too, because the Vestal Virgins started in Alba Longa, and there's actually a famous story with the Vestal Virgins in Alba Longa of Rhea Silvia, and she is the mother of the two brothers who founded Rome. So she was actually sent away to become a Vestal Virgin by her uncle, and I think that's where we get his name is like Usurpa or Usurp something. So when you like usurp somebody, I think that's where that meaning comes from. But anyway, he basically says, I don't want you to have any children. You're going to go away to be a Vestal Virgin. Well, she ends up getting pregnant. And in some stories, this is rape. And in some stories, it's immaculate conception, very much like Mother Mary. So
Mhm.
you take that for what you want. She ends up having these two boys, Romulus and Remus. And they end up throwing her and the boys in the river, and the river has a name. I think it's like Tiberia or something.
Sounds
I'll have to look it up.
familiar.
So anyway, that did not kill them. They were actually raised by a she-wolf and ended up coming and becoming the founders of Rome. It wasn't actually them who brought Vesta to Rome. It was actually the king who took over after the one, I think it was Romulus, who was the king, but I could be wrong. Anyway, Numa was basically, he became the king afterwards, and he was the one who popularized Vesta in Rome, and it became what it is even today. So it became the light to signify that Rome was permanent. And Numa is known to basically make Rome the start of what we know today. So I just thought that was really interesting. The Vestal Virgins, when you became a Vestal Virgin or a Vestal Priestess, at this point under Rome, you had 30 years of celibacy. And if you did not comply with that, there were some serious, serious actions taken against you, the worst one being buried alive
Yeah, they locked your ass in a wall.
in the ground.
Oh, I read that they walled them up with like a small amount of food and then they
They
would
do. They
eventually
they
die
wall them
from.
off, but they put the dirt over it, so it's like they never existed.
Hmm.
It's like I'm sure there's so many different versions, wall, the ground,
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
The point is that they were trying to erase them. And
Hmm.
sometimes they were flogged. But what I think and I find very interesting is that if you like energetically tap into Vesta and the priestesses, even, way back then, they were practicing in sexual acts. I mean, there was sex magic, and that was pretty
Yes.
prominent in things all across the world. And that was also another. So whether it's her being sovereign and her using her own creative fire to direct it, right? The staff doesn't always have to mean a phallus or a penis. It can actually mean I'm giving this direction. I'm giving this energy someplace to go. Very simply put, when you're angry, Amanda has helped me so much and been like, hey, there's practices for that and learning how to direct that energy rather than letting it go nowhere or consume you. And I think that is one aspect of it, but it's also another aspect of actually partaking in the sexual rites, of learning sex magic and understanding you're pulling energy, you're creating energy, you're merging energy and the alchemization of that. And I think what really happened over time was, again, and I say this, I just want to say this. I am not a person who is going to damn the masculine. But what I will say is I think we've had a very long time of the feminine being covered up, removed, manipulated. So there is something about us being able to reclaim our stories, right, that live
Hmm.
in our DNA and live through these lineages, but also be able to say there's a place for both, right? So when I talk about this, I don't want it to be like, yeah, like screw the men. I want us to be able to say, yeah, that happened a long time ago, and we deserve the right to claim this power again, but understand that there is balance in both, and balance comes with both. So
Yeah, we need both. I mean,
we,
screw some of
yeah,
those men,
yeah,
but
oh, yeah,
also,
100%,
but
100%.
also
There
not
are
screw
some
the
out there.
masculine in general.
Right. Like, I don't want to generalize, right? There's
Yeah.
like, there's bad in every aspect, but I think there's something like really beautiful and really special about looking at Vesta and being like, and it does make me want to cry. It's kind of like how I feel with Medusa, where I really feel like her story was manipulated so much. And a lot of these goddesses, like and honestly, I don't feel that Vesta went to her brother and was like, hey, make me anything, because I think she was already sovereign. Jupiter didn't have to give her that. You know what I mean? She already owned that power where she was just like, I think there's small manipulations in these stories where the men are giving permission for, and that wasn't, I don't believe that that's how it would have been.
Yeah.
I really don't. And so I think there's something very, very powerful in looking at Vesta and reminding ourselves that we don't actually have to cut off anything, right? Like with the Vestal Virgin having 30 years of celibacy. And again, I think that was also at a time where these men these people knew what the power sex magic had or sex alchemy had, and what these rites were actually about, and maybe looking for more control and looking to maybe cover up the power of what her story actually was, bringing and bridging the earth and the cosmology and being able to then give it somewhere to go. And I think I don't know, I just really, really
And
like that.
weren't they even like originally the Vestal virgins would actually procreate with like the
Yes.
king's line? They would like go into a dark cave where no one knew who was sleeping with who and whose babies came from who. And their job was like to perform this kind of sacred ritual for fertility in the place they actually created the rulers that would go on to rule.
Yes. Who
And
would
then
then,
they squashed that with the
yes,
monarchy, and then it became like a family thing down the line, But it
yes.
used to be that these virgins were actually like creating the leaders of the
Yeah,
world.
they were using this
Yeah.
power. It was like it was considered a power that they were making, it wasn't just like going down and having sex with Janice. It was going and being like, whoa, like this is curated power,
Yeah. It
they
was total sex magic, like you said.
total
What
sex magic.
side note, if you're interested in things like that, the Magdalene manuscripts are so wild about how Jesus participated in sex magic, and like that's how a lot of those powers were cultivated back in the day. So
And
it's wild.
that's the Ka body and the serpents, and that
Kundalini.
goes the whole way back to Isis. I mean, like this isn't, and that's the thing is like when you go back that far, like you really start to see these beautiful aspects of these old ways. And that was a time that it was the goddesses. It wasn't the gods. It was the goddesses. And I think
Mhm.
to really like when you go biblically or with Christianity, the Holy Spirit, Son, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, you're completely diminishing and my words are failing me,
Forgetting. Yeah.
forgetting the feminine. And that's not at all how it used to be back in. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, even Inanna was 4,000 years ago. Like they understood the power and the importance of the feminine energy. And I think that is very much what Vesta is about. And I think, like, yes, I love the stories. Like, for the festival, it's actually a quiet celebration. It's supposed to be quiet because, Vesta liked to be quiet. And,
Maybe that's why I felt I wanted the like chill out
yeah,
mocktail.
I have my guava goddess. Like I'm
I
just
love
like
it.
I put on my peppermint and I think like maybe it wasn't quiet. She just didn't like the drama. She's
Yeah.
just like none of this shit's important. Like I just want to focus on me, which is
Yeah.
very virgin energy. Like virgin energy is very like you're kind of a little bit selfish because you're like I'm not interested in mothering you or being, supporting anything than what I want to focus on.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily think she was just like, I need it quiet, but that could also mean regulated nervous system for everything that required for her to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There was a barefoot pilgrimage. So women would walk with unbound hair and bare feet. And that was to honor the old ways because when Rome was first getting established, especially under Numa, it was still like very tribal. It was not the Rome we know today. Bakers and millers are like, they definitely participate because the Vestal virgins were actually also in charge of making a certain salt or flour mixture that they would put over the animal sacrifices that they would be using. And I just think it's great that the donkeys would be decorated with garland and flowers and bread, and they weren't allowed to work. So, and it was actually like for laws and restrictions, you weren't allowed to get married. You weren't allowed to bring anything to court. So I mean, I think there's like I love Vesta, but I also feel like they kind of did her wrong in some of the ways, because the way that uh, Vesta is represented today just is so muted. It's
Yeah.
brought down like 50 notches from what she actually really is. And like, while I love the whole idea of like the domestic life and all of those things, because that's the mother energy, that's actually, that limits her. That puts her in very much of a box that she is not meant to be in. And
It's like taking away Mother Mary's dragons, you know?
100, and that's what they did. They took them away. And they were like, oh,
Yeah,
they don't even exist.
right.
Lies, lies. So I think Vesta, I think again, and the what's really interesting though, when I tap into Vesta, like Vesta's just like those motherfuckers fucked it up. But it doesn't matter, because anybody who really knows me and wants to work with me is going to like find that. Hi, Gussers.
Guess is gonna
Gus,
say.
Gus is like, I like Vesta too.
He's like, hey guys.
Oh, Gussers. Hi, buddy. So anyway, I think it's really interesting. And I really loved learning about the phallus mother. And that's what's so interesting, is like they don't talk about anything. That I really had to look for that.
Yeah.
And they don't, that, if you just get on, it's like, it's kind of like with Saris. It's like, oh, she's the mother energy. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's so much to that, or
Yeah.
just for harvesting. It's like, wow, so much of the story is just, oh yeah, she's the goddess of the hearth. What the fuck? No, she was the goddess of like
I
the,
love that you froze like that for a second. It was amazing. It was like extra emphasized.
get my point?
So good.
No, I'm sorry. My internet is like really wonky today. We had a big storm yesterday. So anyway, that's my spiel of Vesta.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. Okay, so astronomically, I guess I should start with first. She is the second largest after Ceres, um, in the main asteroid belt. So these major asteroid goddesses are all kind of in the main asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. What I find interesting, like extra interesting, is that she's the brightest because she's like fire at her core. So we can see Vesta with the naked eye, which is a pretty big deal when you talk about things astrologically. Like when we talk about things astrologically, like they get more important when we can see them than if we have to use, telescopes and things to view them. Uh so she is like very radiant and luminous, like she reflects a large amount of the sun's light. And some even view her as like a failed planet. Like if Jupiter didn't form as a planet, she would have been a planet, much like the Earth or Mars. Uh, yeah, so a lot of what Jen was sharing, like Vesta was definitely like a very different vibe pre-patriarchy. Like she was very much tied to sacred union, kind of fertilizing power and sexual transformation and expansion. And then at one point, a then Christian emperor kind of abolished her worship. And patriarchal rule turned her into a symbol of purity and chastity, which is not what she was at all. Like Jen said, she was, if anything, sexually free and like going her own way. Uh, I think it's really fascinating. Like my whole astrological journey, I've been like, it's so interesting that the glyph for Virgo and the glyph for Scorpio are so similar. They're both M's, and then for Virgo, that tail is turned inward, and for Scorpio, the tail is turned outward, right? And diving down this rabbit hole, it's because Libra was birthed from the patriarchy. So Libra was once a part of Scorpio. Libra was considered the claws of the scorpion, basically. And then the patriarchy, this Greek astronomers uh, put the sign of Libra between Virgo and Scorpio to put marriage in there. You know, it really like Libra is that sign of partnership, marriage. It really was the exchange of like, you give me a dowry, I give you a woman, you know, I get the cow and you get the lady. And it marked a clear delineation between like the woman is either virginal and chaste because she's not married yet, or
Right.
she's sexual and married. And there's really no in between. And I think it's really interesting too because, you know, sex kind of became a sin without marriage, Libra,
Yep.
which created a disconnect between the sexuality, Scorpio, and the spirituality, Virgo. But those two things were very much married together before. And in astrology, while Libra in the seventh house often represents partnership and marriage, the eighth house can be more like your soulmate energy, which also makes sense. But prior to that, she was like this, like Jen said, like sex magic, like spiritual healing, transcendental, you know, sex for the purposes of blessing the
Enjoyment.
region and the harvest and all of that, but also for the purposes of enlightenment and like getting your own magic, like very much tied to Kundalini. You know, sex is very much like creation energy. Like in astrology, money and sex are on that same plane. Like if you're not juicy in like all of the areas, it's hard to like attract abundance in the ways that you want to in your outside life, right?
Yeah, using
So,
orgasms for manifestation.
yes, everyone should be. Absolutely. So in the natal chart, there is this piece of Vesta that is like a vast spectrum of sexuality from repression to overexpression to promiscuity to sexual idealism and people who like maybe look like a fuckboy, but they're really just not like connecting in the way that they want to with people that they're wanting to connect with, or it becomes like this kind of promiscuous thing that's not really connected to commitment because Vesta is also very much like commitment versus fear of commitment, you know, how we deal with our own personal sexual energy, what kind of sexual complexes we may walk the world with. Uh, so there's definitely all of that, but she was really about cultivating divine through inner union with herself, you know.
Yes.
She may have been having partners, but she was very much like it was an inside job. And there is a tie to the navel or sacral center, which makes sense because sex energy is creation energy. It is, those things are one and the same. We either, you know, create money in our lives or create a book or we create a baby. Like it's all kind of like the same stuff, right? And there's definitely a tie to that kind of like Kundalini rising energy and Kundalini magic in general, which in that book, the Magdalene manuscripts, they were using like Kundalini sex magic. That's what they were using to create
That's
more.
with Tom Kenyon, right? Isn't that Tom Kenyon's book?
I think so. It's
I'm
so
pretty
good. It's
sure.
like the Magdalene manuscripts, the sex magic of Isis and Horus or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's Tom Kenyon and Judy or something. But yeah, and they talk about the Ka body and like the merging and all the things. And yeah, it's a real alchemization. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just to like, it wasn't just enjoyment, even though that was a big aspect of it, but it was to like build in this energy, which is definitely something, like I said, sharing, you know, the earth, you know, the phallus piercing the earth and bridging, you know, the earth energy, the earth mother and the cosmic mother, you know, that can be done with ourselves, you know, like you said,
Hmm.
she isn't necessarily looking for partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
So there's definitely that part of it. There's like the sexuality piece of it. But at her heart, she's like, reminds us that fire is life. I mean, fire is life. Without fire, we didn't have clean water back in the day. We couldn't cook our food. Like, uh, and she's really mostly associated in astrology with like devotion and focus. So like what you kept saying about It's focusing the energy. It's focusing the energy. Like that's really what she's about. Like, what are you devoted to? What are you meant to focus on in this life? Where is their focus and where is their lack of focus? She's definitely tied to sovereignty. She's definitely tied to like being centered in your own identity. She's definitely tied to, self-development and how we are disciplined or not around a lot of the sixth house significations, like taking care of ourselves. If fire is life, then how do we sustain life through food and hydration and movement and breath and service and all of those kinds of things? Uh, she's very, very much tied to a person's pathway to fulfill their soul's journey or their work that is most in alignment. So she is someone to be considering along with uh, your midheaven, your ascendant, your north node, like your incarnation cross. Like I would put her in that basket of like what you're really supposed to be doing, what really gives you fulfillment. And if you're not working with those parts of your chart or being a representation of that, then there's frustration and angst and like resentment and like crunchy feelings inside because you're not really walking the journey that your soul came to have. There's like a mismatch in the alignment, right? I also think that means that Vesta is a great, great placement to be getting to know right now for the new paradigm. And I said that last time for Ceres because Ceres helps us regulate our nervous system. Ceres helps us nourish ourselves so that we can hold a new world, so that we can have the capacity. But Vesta is helping you orient yourself to what you're actually here to be doing and being in the world, It's that work that you're meant to be devoted to. It's a deeper sense of calling, what feels really meaningful and like what is the deeper service, as well as like your own particular flavor of devotion. Like, what does that look like? And also where we might sacrifice or sometimes have limitations to achieve a particular purpose that is really important because of all the Vestal virgin stuff, like they would, have their sexual experiences and then they would go off to like a bunch of different springs and like purify themselves. She's very much tied to rituals of cleansing. And I would say, if your body or design Vesta and your human design is different than your personality natal Vesta, that I would pay attention to the physical needs of your body Vesta when it comes to like the purification and the cleansing and the like nourishment of this part of your chart. She's also very much connected to like where there is spiritual concentration in your chart, which I think is really interesting because I talked about godheads last week on my podcast. And I've been working with Lakshmi, even though she's not one of my godheads. And I have Vesta conjunct Chiron with Sedna, all in Taurus, with my personality Earth. So it makes sense that, like, even though this may not be a god, and Lakshmi is in my design Mars, which is a huge thing in human design. That's your core wound, that's your vocation. But to have all of these things in that kind of Lakshmi energy, it makes sense that I'm drawn to her. Um, the house, like some people feel like the house is more important than the sign. I think both are important, but the house definitely speaks to that kind of focus. Where is
Direction.
the area or the container that
Mhm.
you're meant to be focused on, that you're meant to be devoted to in some way? Um, and then the sign is like helping you flavor that devotion to those topics, right? To
Direction.
those
Yeah.
significations. It's also a place where we might have some limitations or a place for sacredness or tied to an area of life where we need to regularly prune. What do we give to the fire to let stuff go and to kind of move into new energies when we need to? Uh, if so, when it comes to these things, like I said, I personally believe, as far as the major goddess asteroids, so Vesta, Juno, Ceres, Athena, or Pallas Athene,
Mhm.
they're all important. They all like bring balance to a very masculine, heavy planetary makeup in our natal charts, right? But some people will have a stronger asteroids than others. If you have one of these asteroids in one of your angular houses, first, fourth, seventh, 10th, like I think it's really interesting. Like for me, I only have one planet. Well, I have Pluto, but I only have one personal planet in any angular house. Uh, and that's my moon in the 10th. All my other planets are, in succedent or cadent houses, except for Pluto is in the fourth house, and they're all below the horizon. For me, like I have multiple asteroids in angular houses. I have Juno in the first, I have Ceres in the 10th, I have Vesta conjunct my Chiron. Like that does mean it feels timely that I'm starting to unpack some of these things because it is rounding out my chart and like giving me some places of focus where uh there's some strong energy. Our angular houses are at the forefront of our natal charts. So if you have any of the asteroids that we talk about, even as we get into other ones in the angular houses, those are ones that you would pay more attention to. If you have one conjunct an angle, that ups the potency, especially if it's conjunct your ascendant or conjunct your midheaven. That would be huge. If it's conjunct a personal planet, especially. So maybe not Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, but if it's conjunct any of the inner planets, that would be potent. Conjunct my Chiron feels potent. That's like my core wound in this life, according to my astrology. If it's conjunct your nodes, then there would be like this fated, destined aspect to it. You would be unraveling some karma if it was conjunct your south node, and it would be part of your soul's destiny if it was conjunct your north node. I would also say if it's part of a stellium in your chart, especially, and a stellium means three or more planets for me. Some people think four or more, but I go three or more, especially personal planets or uh yeah, especially personal planets, but especially in the signs of Virgo or Scorpio because Vesta is considered to rule over both of those signs, right? Vesta is currently, for all of us, transiting through Aries, which feels like an ally for the new paradigm. We've had like such a concentration of Aries energy. We had that crazy Neptune, Saturn kick off the new civilization aspect at 0 degrees Aries. Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. So Vesta is here asking us all, like, where are you needing to step more into sovereignty? Where are you needing to step more into your power? What is the individuated, unique journey that your soul came to have? And that's going to be different. Most of us who are listening to this podcast and are self-aware humans are not the same person that we were 5 years ago. It's
Correct.
been so much like turnover, right? Energetically. And we likely may not be the same person in 5 years from now as the whole world around us reorganizes, right? So some of these placements like Vesta can help you orient towards like, what does source want for you? Like, what does your soul want for you? What is the journey that you came to have rather than like trying to mimic or compare yourself to what everybody else is doing? So that's kind of the basics
When
of
you were
Vesta.
saying Vesta is about being, it kind of made this connection. I did say like, oh, maybe that's like about the nervous system, but it really clicked in when you were like about being because, she's known as like being quiet. But what if it's because you need quiet, right? We have to be able to remove ourselves from our drama or from the drama to be able to find focus and to be able to reorient, like, where do I want my focus? Because you're just so busy. And drama doesn't have to mean like reality TV show drama. Drama can just be like you're so busy that you don't have time to hear yourself. And
Yes.
so I think that's like a really great reminder of Vesta is like, I might be quiet, but it's because I'm so focused on me.
Mhm.
And I don't need, and this kind of reminds me, like I wrote about this with Hemera, the goddess of daylight, but it reminds me so much of Vesta. They're not externally pouring energy out. She's radiating because she's honed and harnessed that fire. So she just
Mm.
radiates. There's no, like, she's not losing energy from anything because she just is, if that makes sense, from like honing. So I just had to add that because like what you said was just so perfect. And and I think like you said, I think we're gonna be surprised, but probably not, because I really think that the goddesses are here to help guide us to the new paradigm, to really be able to embody it, to anchor it.
Yeah. Gus just opened the window so he could look out.
I saw it. I was like,
Angel, the whole lighting
oh.
just changed. Uh, yeah, I think, you know, when we talk about hearth and home and centeredness, it's like hearth and home within yourself too.
Yeah.
You know, yes, it is cultivating sanctuary in your world, especially if you've got Vesta in the fourth house or Cancer, but it's also like, how do you cultivate that hearth inside yourself, like you said, and then that radiates outward. And we talk about that a lot in human design, like the more you become your individuated self and become so full up of yourself, not in a not in a negative, like I'm full of
Um,
myself way, but just like I'm myself. I'm not all this conditioning. I'm not all this comparison. I'm not all this other stuff. The more you radiate your own magnetic frequency, it's when we sponge up everybody else's stuff and societal conditioning and family conditioning and all these other things, or we look for our validation and likes and comments on social media, that we like lose our own centeredness, which is very much Vesta. Yeah. So Jen has Vesta in Aquarius in the eighth house in gate 49. 49 is interesting. It's interesting to have Vesta, this being of devotion, in a gate where you're trying to transmute the shadow of quitting too soon. Like that's the energy of that, is like it's like this rebellious energy, but it's also like don't give up before the thing actually gets ground. It's also very much like revolution over reaction. So there's a big change from within energy to this. There's a big emotional hygiene. It's the solar plexus center, and devotion to not being a victim of your own emotional reactions and not letting that like kind of run the show. Aquarius is obviously about evolution and involution and pioneering change, like being the first. And Vesta in Aquarius would very much be like a call to usher in the future and to be in the energy of possibility over limitation and to cultivate community and be a visionary. But it's also very much a, like, make sure that you tend your own flame as well as others. Like that's really important. I think in the eighth house, it's really interesting too, because the eighth house is a lot of times connected to fear. And the both of us have Vesta and fear gates. Like all the gates in the solar plexus are fear gates. The gates of the ajna and the gates of the spleen have like a fear side to them. And gate 49 is about not giving up too soon, also because of fear of rejection or unpredictability or consequences. So that's like really connected to the eighth house piece of like, what fears do you need to transmute so that you can be in devotion to the things that are important to you and that are meaningful to you? Uh, there's also in your relationship an interesting one to 49, because 49 is like being clear about your rules. And do people know your rules? Because you have like your own rules inside. And like when
mhm.
someone enters a relationship with you, they're meant to live up to those rules and the bargain they just made by entering into the relationship. So it's like, but do they know what they are? It's important that they know what they are, so that they're not
Communicate.
disappointing you because they don't know the rules to the game, kind of thing. Uh, the eighth house is obviously also connected to deep transformations, sacred sexuality, and like using sex as a manifestation technique and as a way to up level and enlighten and transcend. I don't like the word transcend because it always feels like bypassing, but
Yeah.
that's not initially what it meant. Like to have a transcendent experience and to look for the ways that sex is more meaningful, not just an act. It's also mysteries of life. It's the life, death, rebirth cycle. It's being a doula, like a death doula. It's the occult, very much. Like the eighth house is like the most occult. It's also shared resources. It's grief tending, like all of those kinds of things. But also what you deeply long for, can be eighth house. And then you, unlike me, do have your body Vesta in a different gate, in a different sign. So you have your body Vesta in Capricorn in the seventh house of partnership and marriage, in gate 58, the root center. So that would mean, like we've talked about, nervous system work,
Yeah.
grounding, all of those things are super important. Uh, I also think like this is one of my favorite gates because this gate is just really about joy and like vitality and bliss and that vital spark. When you're in the energy of dissatisfaction, you're in the shadow energy. And when you're moving into the energy of vitality and like your inner flame is, you know, high, then you're moving towards that bliss, high voltage, vital energy. This gate is also tied to the adrenals. So, like, really nourishing the adrenals is really important. There was something else I thought about this one. Oh, I think it's really of note that even though they're in different signs and different gates, they're both ruled by Saturn. So, they both require discipline. They're both catalysts for growth. They're both about concretizing magic into form. They're both about being consistent with your devotion and showing up to the karmic lessons that are connected, right? And I don't know why I had this thought when I was writing down my notes for you, but a lot of times in manifestation and crystals, because I'm a crystal person, I love crystals, we always think about like citrine and all of these like, manifestation crystals. And what we really need are the grounding ones. Like what we really need is black tourmaline. What we really need is hematite so that we like ground our energy so that we can grow up and expand, right? So that came through when I was writing. Why are you making that face?
Because
Present.
I almost put on my black tourmaline necklace this morning.
Hmm,
I just couldn't get it untangled and I didn't want to be late. So I just was like, well, I'll just put it on later.
I
But I
love
think
that.
that's really interesting. Also, I
Yeah.
just made these earrings and it's Amazonite. And
Oh, yeah.
Amazonite is really a great crystal for nervous system, like helping regulate the nervous system.
I
So I
love
just
that.
felt like because you had said like nervous system work was really important for the 58th gate and Saturn wanting, me to show up. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was really great. But I love that. And what's really interesting is, do you know, like looking at raw tourmaline, black tourmaline, it almost reminds me of like the cinders in a fire.
Hmm.
Like when
Feels
they're
very Vesta. Yeah.
right. I'm like, wow, that like, and I was like, why am I putting this on? Because usually I go for like, I go for the tourmaline for protection, not necessarily grounding. So I must not have been, that didn't come to me, but that makes sense. The grounding and like yeah, like it just reminds me of like when you're at a campfire and you go to, take a stick and just like you want to break that little black
Mhm.
cinder down. And anyway, that just feels very Vesta now. I don't think I'll be able to like associate it with anything else other than Vesta now. I love it.
Yeah, I think you can also like get Vesta meteorites. Like there's been some violence to Vesta and like part of her has broken off and like some of the meteorites that have fallen have been from Vesta. And I think much like I kind of want to look into it because Moldavite, which is also a meteorite, was like a life-changing crystal for me. Like it's wild how I've told the story so many times of like I went to crystal shop and I had heard it 3 times. You know, when you hear things 3 times, it's like your guides are trying to move something through. I kept hearing about moldavite. I was like, what's moldavite? And so I went to this crystal shop and they had this really cool moldavite ring. And I put it on and immediately started having anxiety. And it's called the hot flash stone because it makes you feel like hot flashy and anxious sometimes. And so there was a tarot reader in the store and I was like, I just want to sit down and like see what you get on this stone. And she was like, you have been getting messages from your guides, like you're meant to be, you know, getting this. And also, I'm never this blunt with clients, but it's going to end your relationship. And I was like, wow, okay. And at the time, I was in a relationship and living with a bassist who was also an alcoholic. And we had had many conversations about him getting sober. And we had just had a conversation the night before. And I was like, oh no, we're like in a good place. Like that's not happening, but thank you. But I am still curious. So I bought it. I wouldn't even wear it home. I like set it in the passenger seat of my car. And then I drove home and set it on the dresser. And that night he came home wasted from a show, like just plowed. And I broke up with him and ended our relationship. And then my whole life like flipped on an axis. Like if you want to change things in your life, Moldavite will change things. And people who know Moldavite, like I wore it to a breathwork conference one time, and the woman was like, "How the fuck are you wearing that crystal at this event?" Because it's that like potent. And I tend to think the meteorites are like very catalyzing. So I'm curious to see if I could get a hold of a Vesta piece.
So the Moldavite isn't connected,
Mm-mm.
but
I don't,
um
yeah.
I think it
It's
might
just a different meteorite.
yeah, yeah, but that actually she's connected with Persephone, the
That makes
Moldavite,
sense. I could see that.
Moldavite, right? But the actual Vesta stones are, oh wow, it didn't save. I'm not sure what happened.
They are available.
They are available. There's like three different kinds, and it's let me see if I can go back to what I
I feel like I need one with my Vesta conjunct
called
Chiron.
Howardites, Euchrites, and Diogenites. So there's three different ones.
We'll have to look into this because I feel like I'm headed into my Chiron return. Vesta's conjunct my Chiron. We should think about it. So that's why I wanted to
Totally
share.
do it.
Yeah. Uh, that's why I wanted to talk about Vesta right now because it's very timely for me. Like I said,
Yeah,
Vesta's
so
conjunct.
talk about your like how is
Yeah.
she in your chart?
Yeah. So she's conjunct my Chiron. She's conjunct my personality, Earth. Uh, and I'm 46 right now, and my Chiron, like Chiron is moving into Taurus this month. So all of us that have Chiron and Taurus are going to be getting on the ride for a Chiron return. And at some point it will go exact for each of us. And for me, that will be when I'm 49. So I'm like in that funnel. And like I said, she has been squatting on my moon when we scheduled this. She's since moved off a couple of degrees, but I think it's really interesting that that was happening. And, you know, you kept talking about her being quiet or chill or whatever. And oftentimes when we have a transit from Vesta, it's usually a moment when we pull back our energy in some way or we retreat or there's purification or regeneration. And I deleted Instagram from my phone. I've been like much less out in the world. I started a parasite cleanse. You know, I've been like doing things, although I've like cheated so many times. I'm as far as like food, I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna eat this and take my herbs. It's gonna be fine.
Well, she is also,
Uh,
yeah, she is also about like, she is the virgin, the sovereign. So, she's gonna listen to her inner authority.
exactly. I'm gonna do the thing if I want to do the
Yeah.
thing. It's also summer. So it could also be that there's a breakup. Like Vesta can be like a time if she's transiting something, especially your Venus or even your moon or your sun, where you end a relationship or take a break from a relationship because you feel the need to like kind of pull your energy back. Uh, but that means like that natally, she's basically married to my core wound in my astrology. In human design or gene keys, we put the core wound over on our unconscious Mars, but it's both. They're sharing, which kind of means like she's fuel for sacred devotion. And with my personality Earth also being there, our personality Earth is very much about evolution, like what we're here to evolve in this life, self-realization. That
Yeah.
means that I kind of ultimately create stability and grounding when I fully embrace and transform the pain body that is my Chiron situation, you know? In a way, I also have her in mutual reception, which means like trading places. Because if she rules Scorpio, I've got Venus in Scorpio, and Venus rules my Vesta in Taurus. So they're like swapped. So it kind of means that like I've got a buddy that's like bringing me snacks and like showing me the way a little bit, for the tour. There's a real, obviously, with Chiron involved, devotion to healing, and purpose is kind of derived through my wounds and vulnerabilities, not in spite of them. It's like going
Mhm.
through, not around. I also think like personality Earth is like core pain merging with sacred devotion to ground and stabilize my soul, right? So there is no stability for me without doing the work of my healing. Otherwise, I'm kind of untethered until I really address those rawest parts of myself. And, I speak often my internal process. Like I'm not an astrologer that doesn't talk about, like, there's a lot of astrologers that gatekeep their charts. They won't talk about their personal chart. Everything's like behind closed doors. They'll only talk about you. I'm not that person. And that's partially because I've got my channel of the alpha from myself to my throat. So I'm here to share my
Your
stuff.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, but this is another layer to that, like it's like my internal process of my own healing into practical tools for my community, 11th house, because that's where this exists for me. So, kind of that is the alchemy of my earth, where I take abstract spiritual lessons and manifest them onto the earth plane. Uh,
But that's very Vesta.
yes.
Like
And if
that's
I
why
don't do
she's
that,
considered the phallus mother because you're piercing, the phallus is piercing the earth and we're bridging the cosmic and earth energies. So that's very, very Vesta.
yeah. And if I don't face those things, it's like I will stay stuck in a victimhood loop or in survival anxiety. It actually brings to my Chiron and personality Earth this ally of Vesta who can help me see what I need to be devoted to and where I need to focus rather than like reliving loops. I
Yeah,
start to actually heal those things and radiate that wisdom. And a lot of that is going to be to purify the mind and break mental conditioning because I've got all of those Vesta, Earth, Chiron, and Gate 24. And Gate 24 is a bit of a doozy if you have Gate 24. It's in the
she a
Ajna
real bitch.
Center. What?
Is she a real bitch?
Yeah, she a real bitch. It's like the gate of addictions,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
that would do it.
not necessarily like addicted to alcohol or cigarettes or things like that, though I do have kind of an extreme personality sometimes. It's more about addictions to your own mental loops or addicted to your own suffering. Like a lot of people are addicted to their own suffering.
I
It
feel that.
becomes like an identity,
Yeah,
and you've been through so much that you want people to understand how hard it's fucking been. But by doing that, you just keep perpetuating the loops of suffering? It's a lot about transformation of that and renewal, but it also really doubles down or triples down. I have so much in my chart that is like, I need silence and alone time. Like that's gate 24. That's my two line. That's my gate 40. Like if I don't have that, I start to like actually lose my mind. And I have in the collective, if you have gate 24 in a prominent place, addictions meditation and Kundalini. Addictions meditation, again, is not just about, it can be like you're addicted to sugar, or you're addicted to alcohol, or you're addicted to something like that. But it's also the habituation of thoughts that don't serve you. And it's a super powerful meditation. I've had powerful experiences with it myself. I've had members of the collective who've done the one and this is the space have powerful changes with it. And for me, for 24, if 24 is obsessive mind, in Taurus, it can be obsessive mind of, am I safe? Do I have enough? Am I enough? Do I offer enough value? Is this newsletter long enough for people to be excited about it? Like these are the things that we do, or like we get into the anxiety and worry loops. And gate 24 can feel like the mind itself is a wound. And I have definitely felt like that. Like I have said my whole life, where I am struggle is my own mind. Like wherever I am not where I want to be in life is trapped emotions and my own mind doing like the things that it doesn't need to be doing.
Yeah,
We can kind of get caught in a trap of trying to also think about things logically when this is a frequency of spiritual mastery. And I think that's something to note with Vesta too. It's like, and Sedna, which I also have in Taurus. It's not about me figuring it out. And that's something we talk about in human design. Like, I don't need to, logically sit down with my mind and like figure out what I need to do. I need to clear the energy that's static and interference. I need to step into my worth, which I have done, but took me 20 years probably, probably my entire 20s and 30s were like me trying to step into my worth. Um,
I
I
just turned
also
30
think
and I
like,
feel like I'm just getting there.
yeah, well, you're
Yeah.
younger than me. Like probably around your age is when I was starting to get there, where I was
Right.
like, no, I charge this rate for my services and I'm worth that. Like I've
Right.
had enough people over the years tell me what I'm worth. And that's not to say that I need someone to tell me what I'm worth, but I'm saying, one, there is no amount of money you can put on your services that match your worth. It's
Correct.
figuring out what the value is based on your time invested, based on your energy levels, based on
Experience.
what transformations you're offering people. And some of us, a lot of people who get into this field, we carry an energy in our field that is transformative. Sometimes I can sit down with a client and I have barely said anything in the first 10 minutes and they're like, oh my God, I just had all these epiphanies. And it's because they're in my field, and my field is creating that. AI will never replace that. No matter how many times you type your shit into ChatGPT, you're not going to get the same thing that you're going to get from sitting down with someone whose literal aura is
Yes.
changing you and opening you up. But I also think this wound, which is kind of reinforced with Sedna there too, but is very gate 24. There is like an intense fear of mental instability. And man, when I started having when I had my first nervous breakdown in my 20s, it instilled like a great fear in me of losing my mind. Like I thought, I'm actually going to lose my mind. I'm going to end up in like a fucking like
Event.
institution, and no one's like, it was like so real. It was probably the biggest fear I had in my life. Like I would do all kinds of crazy shit in my life and like daredevil things, but I was really afraid of losing my mind. And that's very much this energy. Like it's not just gate 24, it's gate 24 in my Chiron, in my deepest wound that I'm here to transmute in this life. And it's also probably partially attributed to my South Node in Pisces. Like I probably did lose my mind in a couple of lives,
Yeah.
before. And that's like living in my epigenetics.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jen and I both have it in fear gates. So 24 is also a fear gate that is associated with not knowing the answer. And I've often talked about, man, when I first started doing readings, I would prep a reading for 6 hours. It would take me all day to prep a reading. I would have 17 pages of typed notes because I was so afraid that I, one, wasn't going to deliver enough value. That's Taurus wounds. And two, wasn't going to know. And they were going to ask me something, and I, God forbid, wasn't going to know the answer to that question. And I was going to look stupid. Now I don't care about that stuff. Like
Yep.
you go into a doctor's office, they've had 8 years of medical school and they're still looking at their fucking tablet to answer your question. We are not meant to know everything.
Correct.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know a little bit more than the person who's coming to you to ask you questions about things. And if you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. Let me sit with that, or like do some research and I'll get back to you. It's not a big deal. But like those of us with an open crown who also have this gate, it can be like imposter syndrome, you know? Uh, this is also one where nervous system regulation is huge. And I really need the capacity to step out of my comfort zone. Otherwise, and everybody's comfort zone is different, right? Like my comfort zone might be something in business, but I can like jump out of a plane and like move to a city that I don't know, and that's no problem because I've got my moon in Aries. Like everything's like different for everybody, what that looks like for you. But in Taurus, like all of this needs anchoring in the physical body. It needs earth time, it needs nature, it needs rest, it needs silence, it needs stepping away from the noise sometimes and having time on my own. Even when I first started doing human design readings, I stopped following all human design and astrologers because I didn't want to hear any of their noise. I wanted to be in my own energy with it, right? And I thought it was really interesting, even if you don't have 24 defined, you still have 24. We all have all the things. Even
Right.
if you don't have a planet in Taurus, you still have Taurus in a house and you still have all of these gates. And sometimes they're getting triggered by people's fields that you're in or by the transits. Um, or they're just kind of like an archetype that feels timely. And 24 definitely feels timely because I was looking at something in the collective on the fear gates, and I have this written. It says, "This is a really lovely energy for understanding that when we expand, heal, grow, or create new neural pathways, there is a natural contraction as we acclimate and ground into our newness. The gift of this energy is finding comfortability, resting in the in between, the space between the old pattern and the new groove you're greasing." And man, are we all standing in that space right now. Like we're all like, I've shed all this shit and I might still be in the process of letting
We're in
stuff
the
go.
goo.
And I don't quite know exactly what that new thing is yet that I'm stepping into. And like, how can I hang out in this space and be okay with it and like regulate my nervous system to have enough capacity to hold what I don't know, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I channeled Magdalene a couple years ago and I got like it was such a wild experience and I just remember being like it was awesome. And I know we all have those different experiences in our lives, but it was just really special to me in that moment. But anyway, I walked away with all this information and I was really in a time where I was like, what is going on? Like, do I keep going? Do I, you know, and I got from her, like, she called it the blueprint of existence, and it's the blueprint of the universe and um, of all universes, but it's expansion, contraction, rest, expansion, contraction, rest. And it just,
Yeah.
she said, no matter what dimension or, density you're in, you will be living that cycle. It's just a matter of, and as we kind of go up the spiral, we'll have different degrees of that expansion, contraction, right? Like, you might have expanded and then been like lost your business or you got sick or whatever. And now you might just be like, I just need to take a nap. I just need to take a nap and I'm going to go do my nervous system. And that's kind of your contraction. You got to pull away a little bit and support yourself then during that time. So 100%. And I think like, you're talking about gate 24, but like so much of it, I was like, yep, feel that. Yep, feel that. I remember I also in my 20s had a nervous breakdown. I was on antidepressants for 10 years, 10
Mhm.
years, and anti-anxieties. And I remember thinking, am I ever going to feel like myself again? And that was a big fear of like, am I ever going to be able to come home to myself?
Mm.
And I did. Um, but yeah, there was like that whole journey, the fear of what we feel, and also just being able to say, the expansion, contraction, rest, like that is such a part of our human experience. It is a part of any experience, but it really is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Like Amanda was saying, it's just being able to like look a little bit more deeply and maybe see, okay, like right now I'm in the contraction and how can I support myself? And what Vesta was, she's known for being quiet, but what if that is solitude? What if that is, I don't like the drama because I need to be able to hear myself. I need to know what my inner authority is saying rather than being inundated with what everybody else is saying. That's like we've talked about that. You get on Instagram and it's like, oh my God, I can't eat broccoli. Wait, I'm supposed to be drinking this mineral. Wait, oh my God, that toilet paper. Like, it's like, holy fuck. And
Yeah,
then you
too
can't,
much.
it's too much. You can't hear yourself. So I think Vesta is, and I just love that she came right now. I love that she's like so prominent for you right now. I feel like when you were like, oh, she's in Aquarius, eighth house, 49, don't give up. Like, wow, for me personally, wow. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think Vesta's, she's a big one. She's really a big one. And
Yeah, and your experience, your
yeah,
like experience in your 20s is very much Vesta in the eighth house, you know?
yeah, I didn't think about that. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's important to note too, like, like I said, I've got her in the Ajna Center, so that doesn't mean devotion to my mind. It means devotion to the observer mind, not attaching to thoughts. Like in human
Mhm.
design, we are not our mind. Our mind is great for like doing things outside of ourselves, but it's not great for like figuring things out on our own or like being in that. So this is really like watching my thoughts and being, which is something that saved my life, honestly, when I started doing meditation in my 20s and went to my first, when I went to my first meditation training, I couldn't even sit. I couldn't, they were like, watch your breath. And I was like, I can't fucking watch my breath. Are you crazy? Like, that's
Right.
a panic attack.
Oh
So
my God, 100%.
I would listen to the cars. I would listen to the cars going down the street like waves of traffic. That's what I focused on, but that's how extreme. Like I would drive to acupuncture because that's how I dealt with my anxiety and depression. I found this amazing acupuncturist and he would put a needle in my head and knock me out. But like trying to get there, I would be like breathing into a bag and driving in my car. Like it was so wild. It was so bad. So watching your thoughts is huge. Like how can we practice some healthy attachment? This is also like I looked at my terms and they're all in Mercury's terms or bounds in my chart. So that kind of doubles down on the mental piece as well as the nervous system piece as a pathway for me. And then, like I said, it's all in my 11th house. So Jen and I have talked about this because we talk about business a lot, but like the
Mhm.
Scorpio part of me does like to do one-on-ones. I like the intimacy of it. I like sitting with someone's chart for a few days and like seeing what percolates and pops out. But I feel the most alive when I'm doing group coaching, 11th house, and office hours and sharing with the community and the collective or sharing in this way. But really, when I'm sitting with a group of people and I can answer questions and we can all be in each other's field, like that's when I'm like lit up. And I literally created a safe space for birthing a new world with the collective. It's a toolkit for the times based on my lived experience and what I intuitively feel people need. That is me channeling this energy into something to support and sustain my community, 11th
Yeah.
house devotion, rather than letting it run me. Like that's the thing. All of these energies want channels. So, how do we give them an outlet so they're not coming back on us, right? She is also in opposition to my sun by 1 degree. So that's like my sun is in the fifth house. That's like deep transformative insights in Scorpio to be the raw material to build stable, beautiful, lasting systems, the collective 11th house. But there's always going to be this kind of push pull or seesaw and an opposition between my sun, which is going to be stronger probably than Vesta. Although that clump there, they're all together, like giving each other more energy, right? But I notice the ways that like the Taurus part of me wants to persevere and preserve and stabilize and build. And the Scorpio part of me is like, I'm going to burn it all down and I'm going to delete my whole Instagram and I'm going to start my website over. There's like a purge that happens like every few years where I'm like, what is this? Like, I'll look at my website and be like, this looks like shit. How did I even think this looked good? And I will tear everything down. So yeah, and there's also that cycle between like me being involved in community, which is also my 2/4 profile, and then completely ghosting and like being private. And like Jen will message me sometimes and she's like, "Are you okay? I can tell like your responses are not very long and it's because my capacity is like I can't,
Next.
I can't do too much in one day." The other thing I wanted to mention, which I think is like this would be a more advanced technique of looking at your charts, but we talk about this in Sacred Success Codes in the collective, is looking at the overlay between your personality design and your body design in the Astro HD, like you would a solar return, which means there are houses that are connected, in your chart. Like, unless you are, like Jen, I think, is a Cancer rising,
I'm,
both,
yeah,
then that's going to be same, same.
yeah.
But for me, I'm an Aquarius rising in my body design. So the way that that overlays my chart means that my fourth house and my 11th house are connected, right? So I need, and we see, like, listen to just the things I've talked about today, the way things reinforce testimony, because that's what we're always looking for in our chart. Like, we'll have some things where it's like there's multiple testimony, there's multiple examples of certain themes overlapping. Like, I have gate 40, I have gate 24, I'm a 2-4, I've got all my planets below the horizon line. Like, there's a lot of like needing solitude, even though I don't have like stuff going on in my 12th house. And my body is hardwired with my fourth house and my 11th house connected to need privacy and foundational safety. From that place, I can be fueled to be social and do the collective and do the community goals and do the networking. But without that fourth house foundation, which is also like actually a house, like, it's been extremely hard for me to be nomadic this long and not have my own stuff and my own roots. And I fully believe that things will blossom in a different way when I have that again. But I also can't force it. Like, it's going to come when it's meant to come.
Hmm.
But if I don't have balance for that, like if my two line, say I didn't have all these other things that already make me someone who pulls my energy back, then I might be someone with this overlay who like goes too far out into the public sphere, is too social, doesn't like, is completely unaware of the physical body and the exhaustion and the cellular stress and like needing to come back and restore. I don't have that problem now because I'm 46 and I have a lot of lived experience and I have a lot of the ways that this shows up in my chart. But someone else with that may struggle with that dynamic. So you can think about, if you pull this chart, I use genetic matrix, but if you pull like an Astro HD chart and you look at how your houses are configured, overlaying your personality and body design, you can think of things like, my body requires the themes of this design house in order for my mind and my personality and my kind of external persona to successfully execute the themes of the personality house, which is a really cool thread to pull. And a side note, but I was looking at it for my own when I was looking at Vesta. She's rad.
She
Enjoy.
is. I mean, I just was like really surprised with what I got, and I loved it though. I really loved it, and I'm like excited to work with her. I mean, just from the things that you've said, I already feel like she's been guiding me, and I might not have even known it, you know? And
Yeah.
I also love that too. Like these goddesses show up and they're like, oh, you like reflect black a little bit and you're like, whoa, she made her presence and I might not have even been aware, you know?
I
Um,
think the fact that she's transiting through Aries right now, and Aries is like origin point and manifestation and like sovereignty and being yourself. And even though she doesn't rule over that sign, it feels very like appropriate for the times. I feel like Vesta may resonate for a lot of people right now.
yeah, I
And
agree.
just for
100%.
figuring out your own individuated pathway and what you're supposed to be devoted to.
Yeah, I love that.
Well,
I love it. I think she's great. I think she's a badass goddess and her story, I'm like I do get frustrated because, that good old not self theme there, but um that her story has changed and was maybe manipulated and they did a lot of gatekeeping, but I also am like, well, yeah, but we're here and we're learning and we're reclaiming all of that and kind of like reinstating that energy, and I think that's exactly what the goddess is. I think that's why, they're here to guide us through to the new paradigm, is to really help us reclaim everything and every aspect of ourselves. And you know, Amanda and I have been talking a lot about like not only in her space, but like my space. And we always get very similar themes of this, like, uh, you know, being, that's what's really being called for us to do right now. And it's not to say to look into this information and be like, oh my God, what do I have to fix? It's just having the awareness and like things kind of bubble to the surface. And like Amanda was talking about, with Vesta being and also noticing, some of these things, especially because we both have her in fear gates. So it would be easy for us to like maybe spiral. But one of the things that came to me recently in the energetics of the week, and I think it was like last week or the week before, is like notice a pattern, notice a fear. And immediately, instead of letting yourself spiral, just be like, okay, I feel that. Go do something, go garden, go work out, go do a push-up, go do something with your body. And you'll be so surprised how immediately that movement helps you reorient. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, no, I'm not fearful at all anymore. Like I have clarity around this, and I feel like that's very much Vesta energy is like, yeah, like become aware of the thing, but like, how do you tend to the fire so that you keep going, that you keep
Yes.
listening to your inner authority.
I love that. Yeah, I think, said something in this week's Weekly Nourish about like
Are you
stop
petting
thinking about
Gus's
ourselves
ears?
so much and like stop like focusing so much on like trudging through the mud. Like
Yeah.
I think, one of Richard Rudd's beautiful things about how he talks about the gene keys is like just reading what he writes about them is an activation in itself. And then it kind of like rolls around in your mind and you contemplate it. But I think still like a lot of people focus on the shadow, like, oh my God, it's got the shadow of this. And like, how do I transmute that shadow? And like, if you would just orient yourself to the gifts, if you would just orient yourself to the higher octave of the sign and the house and just start moving yourself in that direction, some of this shadow shit will take care of itself. Like, it doesn't always have to be like, doing all of that work all the time. Like, go live your life, go put yourself in the energy of the gift in the city and like, that stuff. Like, now it's in the background. Like, I know that I need to focus on being the observer of my mind. And I know that maybe addictions meditation would serve me, especially as I'm moving through my Chiron return, because it's up for me right now. And Vesta's here to be an ally. And like, I can think about those things and like ponder them on a walk, but it's also like, just turn yourself towards
Hmm.
the higher octave of that energy. Like, what does it want? What does the planetary ruler of Vesta want? What does Saturn want from Jen? What does Venus want from me? I'm in a Venus year. So again, like, this is also like my house by perfection this year. It's just like all the things. That's why I was like, let's do Vesta, because Vesta's like here for me right now. And there may be someone else who's here for you, or it might be something completely different. But I do think we spend way too much time like trying to fix. And one of the things that I talk about a lot in my business is devotion over fixing energy.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to fix the things all the time and like devote yourself to something great. Like Jen can take what I told her about her gate and devote herself to joy and what sparks joy. And then some of that other stuff will like the static will just disperse on its own
Hmm.
sometimes. So I love that.
I do too.
Oh, good. I love this one.
I do too. I'm super excited. So I think Vesta for the win. We haven't even talked about who we want to do next. I think we do have a list going, but
You can
also
pick because I
you
was
were like,
pretty
we're
choosy
doing
about the
that.
first two. So I'll let you
Well,
pick.
I
And
think there are like four we wanted to do. We
we
wanted
want
to do
to
the main four. So I think Juno was in there.
Juno and Athena.
I know, and I told you, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how about that. But I think she's gonna surprise me because I like have some Medusa is my bish. She is my bish. And, in the story, Athena really did her wrong. So I will be really curious to allow myself to really let go and see what Pallas Athena or Pallas Athene has to say.
That one's interesting for me because my godhead, like my singular godhead for my incarnation cross, is Minerva, and Minerva's counterpart is Athena. So I'm very curious to get
I'm
into her as
curious.
well.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, yeah, I am curious. I kind of, you know what? I kind of want to do her next.
Okay.
I do. I do want to do her
I
next
hear
because I
that.
feel like, and remember, like I was texting Amanda and I was like, listen, I don't know how I feel about this, but I was like, you know what? Resistance is sometimes where exactly we're supposed to go. So I am curious to see.
I
So
love it. Yes.
we were going to
And
be adding Vesta to the Goddess
bundles.
Asteroid bundle. Yeah, so you can get on there and get yourself a bundle reading with myself and Amanda. And right now, your choices will be Ceres or Vesta. And as we build, you'll have more choices as well, which I think is going to be super exciting. I'm just obsessed with our series. I can, if I'm the only one listening, I'm fine with that.
There are people listening because I've gotten many messages.
I know. I've got a couple too, so it's good.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll
Yes,
see you
thank
next time,
you.
I guess, for Palace Athene. Have a great
Alice,
rest of your day.